And we're still going to be discussing monetization in this panel, and I'm very happy to introduce Gagandeep Singh from RaGaPa, and also Gagandeep and his team are veterans of the WiFi Now event series, and from even before that, by the way.
Exactly.
So welcome to you.
Thank you.
Bill Anderson from AmThink is, among others, working with Texas A&M and a string of other stadiums in the US and elsewhere. And of course, Brian Jacks from YConnect is here also to discuss monetization strategies, and we'll get to all of you in turn. So let me just start by asking maybe you, Gagandeep, what in your view is the foundation of a strong monetization strategy? You guys have been working on this for years.
Yeah, for quite a few years now, and we've always said that, and I'll repeat myself, where there is no silver bullet for monetization. You have to have multiple techniques deployed to really get the best ROI. And what we have done is two key components, right? The first one is the different mediums that you can put it out. So you can't just have an email or an SMS going out. You have to have multiple touch points, right? We, in our CaptiveXS solution, and you're most welcome to stop by our booth and we can show you all those demos, we have multiple touch points. So the first touch point is when the user connects to the Wi-Fi, they get a splash page and you can monetize that, right? The second touch point is in session during when they are connected through content insertion that we have in place, also in the solution built in. And the third and the most important is the analytics, right? So we collect a lot of analytics about the users. We churn all that analytics, and then you can send out, like, connect to CRMs, you can push into emails, SMS marketing, and a lot of different things that you can do. So all three components together make a cohesive system. But not just that, the second key component that we see is the context, which is very important. You have to understand through analytics what the user is doing in the venue, right? What is the gender of the venue? What is of the user? What is the age group, if you can get all those information? What websites were they visiting? So when you get all that together, you can actually get a much insightful detail about the user, and you can do better targeting. And I think when you put both of them together, the delivery mechanisms and the insights, I think it becomes a very powerful solution. And that's exactly what we're working with all of our customers today.
Right. Super good answers. Brian Jacks, welcome back to Wi-Fi Now. Tell us a little bit about using the challenge of using ads as Wi-Fi monetization, as a means of Wi-Fi monetization, because you guys have, in the meantime, been working on that, and I know you have some insights on that.
Sure, but just quickly, though, I think it's also important for us to really monetize the entire access point, not just the service. So there's things you can do like B2B and providing connectivity to others in the venue, so I think that's important as well.
Yeah, good point.
In terms of ads, I think one of the things that we do at YConnect is really try to merge two technology in terms of expertise. So we have expertise in terms of network management, but also in advertising with a very unique ad stack. I think what happens is you have managed service providers that really understand Wi-Fi, but don't necessarily understand the ad industry.
Right.
And similarly, you have a multi-billion-dollar ad tech business that really don't understand networks. And so what we do is we put that together so that we can provide even programmatic in a captive portal, but also looking at ways to monetize data as well from an advertising perspective. So it's not just about the onboarding process, it's about monetizing the entire experience.
That has been hard, right, thus far. I mean, I think there are people that have had that ambition, but it's not really
Well, it is hard. It's hard because what happens is Wi-Fi was not created to monetize via advertising, right? I mean, you have a pre-auth page, which means you're not authorized, so it's very hard to put programmatic on there. You have phones that have different types of soft browsers, which are very difficult, particularly Apple, that doesn't allow cookies to go through. So you have to overcome some of those things, and that's that's some of the technology that we have created to make sure that we can overcome those hurdles.
Right, at YConnect.
Yes, absolutely.
And I know you can't talk very much about the cases you're working on, but the company is ready to go, essentially, or what is the status right now?
So to me, I mean, sure, there's a lot of concern about a captive portal and that the average person doesn't want to necessarily go through that, and I get that. But public Wi-Fi is still a free amenity. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that we provide venue owners and network operators the opportunity to make some money off of that network. I mean, it is expensive, and they have to understand that. So there's a quid pro quo. I will say that there are other use cases, and one I think you're going to hear about a little bit later on Thursday, a project, and hopefully I say this right, as a WIZO, right? Where they're putting in about 1,000 access points in an area where the average household only has about $200 of income. And so if you can find ways to monetize those networks, then you can add an economic stimulus to that whole community. And I think that becomes a game changer. So I think you really have to look more broadly about how you're going to use these various technologies so that you can impact venue owners and network managers.
So the other two folks that have a lot of experience with monetization, has it not been more based on sponsorships rather than ads? Because I think when we talk about ads, it's sort of a mass market eyeballs thing, while sponsors is very specific and maybe time limited or something like that. I don't know if
I mean, that's so true. So it's a mix and match, right? I mean, you have the venue promoted content, which could be in-house content, right? This is our largest customer, Cedar Fair. They have all these parks from Cedar Point to Knott's Berry to Great America. All of those parks, they push in their own promoted content. So it's not like third-party ads. This is more like, hey, season pass holders, your season pass is about to expire. Why don't you upgrade, right? Or somebody who is close to a booth for food court, right, or something, they can get a promotion from a food court perspective, right? But at the same time, we've also seen on public Wi-Fi, advertising goes pretty well too, right? I mean, we can integrate with any third-party advertiser. They can push content, and programmatically it just updates, and all that monetization happens end to end. So it is a mix and match, and we have seen customers. More sophisticated customers, they'll push in their own content. I mean, they'll promote their own services and amenities that they have internally. But the ones that are like, public Wi-Fi, like Brian just mentioned, they go with ad networks and all. And then, we integrate with all of them. So we've seen both the use cases to a success. They've all successfully deployed and shown good results.
So I would say CPMs can be limited, particularly when you're stuck in a captive portal and you don't allow cookies to go through, so those numbers can be very low. But if you have a platform that really allows you to do hyper-targeted advertising, then you can see higher CPM. And then you can really use that as a basis for also selling direct and/or sponsorship. That way you can get a a good fill rate. What happens is with sponsorship, sometimes you're not getting a good fill rate because you're not able to sell that much direct. If you can add programmatic as well as direct, then you can have a pretty good fill rate. And that's what we would, that's what we try to help our customers do.
Questions for our panelists here? There's one. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I think I heard, Brian, you mentioned peer-to-peer. What do you see in terms of, do you see any gaming applications, or where do you see the peer-to-peer technology from your perspective?
Anything in peer-to-peer?
When you say peer-to-peer, I just want to make sure.
So let's say P2P or Wi-Fi aware, basically, you guys are talking about clients and access points.
Sure.
How about clients communicating to other clients, like gaming applications, based on analytics?
Sure. So it really depends on the venue that you're in terms of what those applications are. But I would just say that in any venue, particularly a large public venue, you have a number of constituents that are looking for connectivity. They're looking for data analytics, things of that nature, and you can sell that to them. So all I was trying to indicate is that it's not just about the Wi-Fi service that you're providing the public and how you monetize that. It's really about the broader view of that access point, even adding access-based in terms of cellular offload, Wi-Fi roaming, things of that nature. When you can add all of those monetization components together, which a lot of venue owners don't really understand, but when you can bring that to them, then you can provide a broader monetization strategy, which can provide you additional revenue or monetization.
I think to add to what Brian just said, I think not leaving the customer at the last mile, right, is really important, right? You have to completely close the loop, right? You can't just say, here's a platform, go monetize it, right? And then this is where we, and I guess all of us, kind of step in and go that extra mile and then try to close that loop so they can see the ROI end to end, right? Which is really important because, most of the time, just customer pushes the content out, they collect the analytics, and they don't know what to do at that point, right? And then so when you come in and hold their hand and take them to the last mile and say, hey, this is how the analytics convert into some kind of an ROI, that's when it starts making more sense, right? So I think that's really important.
So we've been talking about monetization for years, right? And we've been addressing it from various different angles, and there are companies reasonably successful, I suppose, in this space. But my sense has always been that the opportunity is so much bigger than what we've so far managed to crack. Is that still your sense? Maybe, Brian, maybe you can start. I mean, is there a big market out there that's waiting to be cracked open by, for example, what you're doing?
Oh, I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, I'm talking to a number of different people, whether in transportation, in terms of buses. I mean, if you look at the cost to provide backhaul to a bus, it's expensive, right? So they're looking for ways to monetize that. You look at municipal networks. You look at even library networks.
Yeah.
You know, the taxpayers are paying that burden. So if you can provide monetization to those sorts of organizations, that's great. I mean, we talk to BIDs, or Business Improvement Districts in the U.S. versus Canada, which are called BIAs. They're looking for ways to provide Wi-Fi, and they're looking for monetization to offset those costs.
Right. Bill, how do you see it? I mean, obviously you guys are heavily involved in stadiums still, and what do you see as the next opportunity for you guys going forward? Are there expansion possibilities within that space, or are you looking elsewhere?
Yeah, no, I think the things that these guys are talking about really are applicable to our space as well.
Right.
For us, it's really the focus on mixed media, right? How do we take and drive adoption? It has to be a deeper strategy than just Wi-Fi. How do we combine that with signage? And we did a recent promotion with Pat, and it was around a baseball game. And, you know, we did a 40-second spot on the big board during the baseball game. And, you know, it absolutely drove adoption, and it drove onboarding. It's those types of helpers that are getting us to be able to successfully monetize. And then the ability to convert, right? So if they're on cellular, what are the techniques that we can use to get a user to say, hey, you're on the cellular network, I'm going to get you to switch to that Wi-Fi network.
Do any of you feel a little bit under pressure, under threat by competing technologies right now, or do you see that as perhaps something happening, you know, 4 or 5 years into the future when 5G maybe has a stronger role, or what is your view on that? I think, Bill, we kind of talked about this a little bit, right?
I think, you know, it's really interesting the way we talk about 5G is somehow it's going to replace Wi-Fi. But you know, I think the chairman very clearly spoke to the fact that, you know, mid-band, which by the way is Wi-Fi, maybe the expansion of Wi-Fi will be a very material part of the overall 5G solution.
Yeah.
And as we look at the stadium deployments that we're doing today, you know, we use the term 5G, and you know, that's a euphemism for cellular is going to creep into the use of some of the Wi-Fi spectrum, either through Wi-Fi or through the use of the spectrum in LTE. So we see them as very complementary, and I think there's a change that's going to take place in the marketplace. You're going to see different application of technology. You're going to see more carrier involvement in the mid-band. I think that's the big shift, and I think the question is, how do we all follow along and evolve our business models to match?
Brian, when you speak to clients and so on, are they concerned about 5G having some disruptive effect on what they might be able to do with Wi-Fi? Or?
Yeah, I think Wi-Fi it's here to stay. I mean, that's the universal connectivity technology globally.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think Edgar talked about all the number of devices, and it's here to stay, right? So I think we all need more and more connectivity, and we see it's growing, and Wi-Fi is here to stay, and we're going to help them monetize over time.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. I mean, you know, we all know 5G is way more expensive than Wi-Fi to even, you know, put an infrastructure out there. Right? So Wi-Fi is there to stay, and then we're already seeing the proliferation in the guest Wi-Fi space or public Wi-Fi space. So I think that kind of adds into more of our footprint.
Any last question for Pat? Oh, there's one from Dean. Can we have a microphone over here? Thank you.
As we heard from the security presentation earlier on, and I imagine most people here do, it's a good idea to use a VPN on public Wi-Fi. How does that fit with the various approaches to monetization, and whether it's captive portals or the open roaming?
Yeah, so the use of a VPN, who would like to answer that?
I mean, I can take it, but from what I understand, if a Wi-Fi captive portal is blocking access, you can't even get onto the VPN, right? I mean, all connectivity is blocked at that point, right? So, I mean, you know, once you are done through the captive portal, then there could be, you know, things that you could do to avoid, say, content insertion that we do. You go through your VPN channel, we won't see any of your traffic, and we can't proxy that, so we can't insert any content. But I believe the captive portal has to be still authenticated to even get the VPN access in place.
It's a good question. I mean, do you have any experience with that? Are people using VPNs or not?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just an encryption methodology,
Right.
right? So at the end of the day, the traffic is transparent to you. But the traffic was transparent to you before, setting aside the security conversations, because you're already wrapped inside of HTTPS, almost all of your conversations. So there's still opportunities outside of your VPN to look at the traffic that's flowing across that network. You get the information about where people are and how they're behaving. So there's still a lot of what I call aggregate and anonymous data that's available to you. And I think used wisely, that's how you can actually drive strategies around attachment. And if you come back to some of Pat's examples, it's getting people then to join the system through some kind of a promotion. At Texas A&M last year, they gave away a helmet signed by the coach, Jimbo Fisher. He was a big deal. You had a lot of people who willingly provided their contact information in order to win that helmet. It wouldn't have mattered that they were inside of the context of a VPN because they'd already agreed to share that information through the web page that they were participating in, which is where you collected the analytics.
All right, very good. Any final question for panelists? Thanks, gentlemen. I think it's been a really good discussion, and all of you three, I think, are still here for a little while. Yep. And so, Brian, thanks for coming, and Bill as well, and Gagandeep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and please come back and see us again. Thanks, guys. Thanks. All right.